Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi, and the greatest treasure in South America. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. When Spanish conquistadors destroyed the Inca Empire in the 1530s, survivors reportedly fled into the Amazon jungle, carrying the empire's greatest treasures. They built a city called Paititi, the White City, deep in the rainforest where the Spanish could not follow. Every expedition sent to find it has either failed, disappeared, or returned with nothing. The last major expedition member, Italian adventurer Carlos Polti, died in the jungle in 2001. No one has found Paititi. What makes Paititi different from El Dorado, which is widely accepted as myth, is the paper trail. A document in the Vatican archives, discovered by researcher Mario Poglia in 2001, describes a Jesuit missionary named Andres Lopez visiting a city called Paititi around 1600 AD. The missionary described a multi-day journey from a known location, gave directions, and described the city's population and wealth. The document has been authenticated. No one has followed those directions successfully. And the Amazon itself has been repeatedly underestimated. LIDAR surveys since 2010 have revealed vast pre-Columbian cities, causeways, and earthworks hidden beneath the jungle canopy, entire civilizations that conventional archaeology missed for decades. In 2022, a city-building culture in the Bolivian Amazon was described in Nature. It had been invisible until satellite scanning found it. If one such civilization hid in the jungle until 2022, why not Paititi? What is waiting beneath the canopy? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. What separates a civilization from a collection of villages? Not technology alone, but organization. The capacity to coordinate thousands of people toward shared goals, to store and transmit knowledge across generations, to build institutions that outlast individuals. These are the hallmarks archaeologists look for when they define a civilization, and for most of the 20th century, the oldest examples they could identify dated to around 3500 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But that benchmark has been steadily eroding. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s and excavated since, consists of massive stone circles with elaborately carved pillars depicting animals, abstract symbols, and human figures. It dates to at least 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and older than the invention of pottery or agriculture in the conventional sequence. Someone built it. Someone organized the quarrying, transport, and precise placement of limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. Someone knew what they were building and why. That level of coordinated effort implies a society more complex than any model of 10,000 BC predicted. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Every few years, a new site expands the timeline further. Ancient stone structures in Indonesia have been dated to 25,000 years ago. Complex astronomical alignments have been found at sites in Africa predating Egypt by millennia. The human story is older, richer, and more turbulent than the standard narrative allows. When we look at lost civilizations, we are not chasing fantasy, we are attempting to recover chapters of a history far longer than any currently recognized textbook will tell. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi and the greatest treasure in South America, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Paititi appears in Spanish colonial records from the 1600 as a city of Inca survivors and accumulated imperial treasure, located deep in the Amazon jungle somewhere near the Peru-Bolivia-Brazil tri-border region. The name possibly derives from a Quechua or Aymara term. Unlike El Dorado, which is almost universally accepted as a legend, Paititi has a documentary evidence base that serious Andean archaeologists consider worth investigating. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Mario Poglia, an Italian anthropologist, discovered a document in the Vatican secret archives in 2001 describing a Jesuit priest named Andres Lopez who claimed to have visited a city called Paititi around 1600 AD. The document describes the journey's duration and direction from a known starting point, the city's size, and its ruling structure. Poglia presented the finding at a scholarly conference, and it was reported in major Italian media. The document's authenticity has not been disputed. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine Colonel Percy Fawcett, the British explorer who disappeared in the Brazilian Amazon in 1925, was searching for WH. And he called the city of Z, a lost civilization he believed matched the Paititi legend. His disappearance became one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in exploration history. David Grann's 2009 book, The Lost City of Z, and its 2016 film adaptation renewed public interest in both Fawcett and the broader Paititi question. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, French explorer Thierry Jamin has led more than a dozen expeditions into the Madre de Dios and Manu regions of southern Peru since 2009, searching for Paititi. His Inca Institute has compiled Inca oral traditions, colonial documents, and satellite imagery. In 2019, LIDAR surveys of restricted zones in the region detected anomalous geometric shapes beneath dense jungle canopy, forms inconsistent with known natural geology. Ground investigation of those sites is ongoing. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Amazon basin has been substantially reappraised since the discovery of Amazonian dark earth, terra preta, sites areas of deliberately enriched soil, indicating large pre-Columbian settled populations, that the conventional model of the Amazon as an uninhabited wilderness did not accommodate. LIDAR surveys since 2010 have revealed extensive earthworks, causeways, and settlement patterns across the southern Amazon, confirming that large organized societies did exist in the region before and during the Inca period. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Inca oral traditions recorded by Spanish chroniclers in the 16th century consistently describe a refuge city called Paititi, where Inca nobles and priests fled with sacred objects, including the golden statue of Inti, the sun god, which was hidden before Atahualpa's capture by Pizarro in 1532. No physical trace of this statue has ever been found. The Inca deliberately concealed their sacred objects from the Spanish, and some of these items may still be hidden. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi, and the greatest treasure in South America. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that mainstream Andean archaeology considers Paititi a plausible genuine site, an Inca refugee settlement established after the Spanish conquest, now lost in jungle and unexcavated. The Vatican document and Inca oral traditions provide a credible evidence base. The main objection is that 500 years of jungle growth makes detection extremely difficult, and no confirmed site has been physically identified despite numerous attempts. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the skeptical position holds that Paititi is a mythologized conflation, multiple real Inca sites, colonial rumors, and indigenous narratives merged into a single legendary city that never existed as described. El Dorado went through the same process of mythologization. The Vatican document on this reading describes a real journey to a real small settlement, embellished in retelling into a golden city. The objection is that the documentary record is more specific than typical legend. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Ciudad Blanca, White City, discovered in Honduras in 2015 via LIDAR, is sometimes cited as evidence that lost rainforest cities are real and findable, but also as a caution that the Paititi legend may have been applied to different It's in different regions, creating a movable mythological target. Some researchers suggest Paititi is not a single city, but a network of Inca retreats spread across the southern Amazon, none individually matching the full description. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi, and the greatest treasure in South America does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the Vatican document found by Mario Poglia is the strongest single piece of evidence for Paititi's existence as a real place. It is a first-person account from a Jesuit missionary describing a specific journey to a specific settlement. Poglia's scholarly credentials and the document's archival provenance give it weight that travelers' tales typically lack. No researcher has successfully followed the document's directional information to a physical site, but the directions have not been definitively shown to be impossible. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented LIDAR surveys of the southern Peru and Bolivia jungle border region conducted in 2019 detected geometric shapes, straight edges, right angles, and regular spacing, inconsistent with natural formation. These shapes are consistent with cleared platforms, walls, or agricultural terracing. They have not been ground-truthed because the area is restricted by the Peruvian government for environmental and indigenous rights reasons. The anomalies remain unexamined. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. Question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the broader context of Amazonian archaeology now supports the possibility of large organized settlements in the region. The Casarab culture of the Bolivian Amazon, identified through LIDAR in 2022 and published in Nature, comprised urban settlements connected by causeways covering hundreds of square kilometers, a civilization entirely unknown before LIDAR. If one such civilization was invisible until 2022, an Inca-era refuge settlement could plausibly remain undetected in the same region. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi, and the greatest treasure in South America. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Thierry Jamin's Inca Institute is the most active ongoing Paititi search operation, combining LiDAR analysis, archival research, and ground expeditions. The Peruvian government has restricted access to some of the most promising search zones, citing environmental protection and indigenous territorial rights. The 2022 Nature paper on the Cassarab culture dramatically strengthened the case that large pre-Columbian civilizations existed in the southern Amazon. Discovery of Paititi, if it occurs, would rank as the most significant find in South American archaeology, potentially including physical treasure as well as structural and cultural evidence. The search continues with better tools than any previous generation of explorers possessed. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Bolivian White City, lost Paititi, and the greatest treasure in South America, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Paititi ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.